Picture this. It's April 1st, 2026. A luxury cruise ship pulls out of Ushuaia, Argentina. We've got 150 passengers and crew from 23 different countries, all geared up for this stunning trip to Antarctica and the South Atlantic Islands. For those first few days, absolute dream vacation. People are mingling, partying, just having a great time, totally unaware that their trip is about to turn into a complete nightmare. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to unravel the incredibly gripping, entirely true medical mystery of the 2026 ghost ship. The speed at which this whole thing went sideways is honestly chilling. About 5 days in, a 70-year-old Dutch passenger suddenly gets a fever, a headache, some mild diarrhea. He goes to the ship's doctor, but literally within a day or two, he can barely breathe. He goes down so fast that by April 11th, he's dead, and nobody has a clue why. Meanwhile, the other passengers, they just keep socializing. Fast forward to April 24th, the ship docks in Africa. The man's widow takes his body, travels to South Africa, and right as she's about to fly home to Amsterdam, she collapses at the airport and dies. That was April 26th. Back on the ship, this invisible killer is still moving. A German woman gets sick and dies by May 2nd. And it wasn't until that very day that the World Health Organization even got the call about this escalating crisis.
So, what exactly was hunting these people? Well, when the tests finally came back, the diagnosis actually shocked health officials. It was hantavirus. And the truly terrifying part here isn't just that it's a single virus. It's an entire family of deadly viruses carried by different rodents. Now, science has known about this for decades. But get this, there is still no FDA or WHO-approved vaccine. No proven antiviral cure. Nothing. If you get it, doctors can basically just give you supportive care. Your immune system has to fight this brutal battle totally on its own. This microscopic killer essentially splits its attack into two distinct, brutal diseases, and it all depends on where in the world you are. Over in Asia and Europe, you've got hemorrhagic fever with renal syndrome, or HFRS. This one viciously targets the kidneys and causes internal bleeding. But over in the Americas, it's Hantavirus pulmonary syndrome, or HPS. With this version, the patient's lungs rapidly fill up with fluid, which leads to massive breathing issues and ultimately suffocation.
So why is this specific pathogen so feared? It comes down to one massive number, up to 50%. That is the historical mortality rate for severe strains of hantavirus. It can literally kill up to half the people it infects. When you've got something that deadly circulating on a tightly packed cruise ship stranding in the middle of the ocean, yeah, you can instantly see why global health officials were panicking and why countries were suddenly locking their ports to this ship. Section 1, Profiling the Killer, a History of Outbreaks. To figure out how this virus ended up on a 2026 luxury cruise, we really have to look backwards. We need to profile our killer, because the scariest thing about hantavirus, it is not new. It first made a massive, dramatic entrance during the Korean War in the 1950s. We're talking over 3,000 American and Allied soldiers suddenly coming down with fever, vomiting, and kidney failure. About 15% of them died. Doctors were completely baffled at the time. Some even thought it was chemical warfare. It took 30 years to actually solve the case. In the 1980s, a South Korean virologist finally traced it back to rodents, naming it after the Hantan River. But the virus was definitely not done surprising us. In 1993, it struck again, but this time, right in the American Southwest. The devastation of that 1993 outbreak among the Navajo Nation was just staggering. Within a few weeks, 10 people were dead. But what really kept medical investigators up at night was who was dying. We're talking young, previously super healthy individuals. They'd catch what felt like the flu, their lungs would suddenly fill with fluid, and they'd be gone in days. At the start of that outbreak, the mortality rate hit a jaw-dropping 75%. 3 out of 4 infected people didn't make it. Scientists were completely stumped until they actually sat down with the tribal elders. The Navajo oral history had the missing puzzle piece the whole time. A fascinating ecological chain reaction. It's almost awe-inspiring how nature engineered this. It kicks off with a massive El Niño weather pattern, bringing in unusually heavy rain. That rain causes an absolute boom in the pinyon pine nut crop. Suddenly, the local mice have an endless all-you-can-eat buffet, so their population just explodes. And more infected mice running around means a way higher chance of the virus spilling over into humans. The environment literally built the perfect stage for an outbreak. But don't kid yourself. This is not just an American problem or something confined to historical war zones. It's a silent global threat. For the longest time, researchers didn't even think hantavirus was an issue in India.
But a major study between 2005 and 2008 in Tamil Nadu flipped that assumption on its head. They found 28 confirmed cases, mostly in chronic kidney patients, warehouse workers, and local rat catchers. The craziest part? When they tested the general public, they found antibodies in 4% of the population. That proved people were being silently infected all over the world, especially if their day-to-day lives put them anywhere near rodents.
Section 2. The human-to-human twist. Up until this point in history, there was one golden rule of hantavirus that let scientists sleep at night. You couldn't catch it from a rodent. You couldn't catch it from your neighbor. But viruses mutate, and nature just loves to break our rules. In 1996, an outbreak in Argentina completely shattered the assumption that this was strictly an animal-to-human bug. The culprit was a specific variant called the Andes virus. And to this day, the Andes strain is the only hantavirus we've confirmed that has the terrifying ability to jump directly from human to human. But here's the catch, and it's a massive biological limitation. 1 day. That's it. Data out of Argentina show that the transmission window for this mutant virus is incredibly, ridiculously short. It usually only spreads from person to person during the very first day they feel sick. And on top of that, it takes really close, prolonged physical contact to spread, like sharing a bed, encountering bodily fluids, or directly nursing a sick family member. You aren't going to catch this just by bumping into someone on the street. Section 3. Return to the ghost ship. So let's put the puzzle together. Knowing everything we just unpacked, the lethality, the Andes strain, and that super strict one-day window, how on earth did a virus that only spreads for 24 hours cause an international maritime crisis? Well, in March 2026, right before the cruise, that Dutch couple went on a birdwatching tour in Ushuaia. They ended up wandering into a local landfill that was just crawling with rodents. Bam, they can track the human-to-human Andes strain. Now here is the tragic twist of timing. If they had just waited a couple of days to board that ship, the outbreak never would have happened because that one-day window would have slammed shut. But they boarded immediately. The virus's tiny infectious window perfectly overlapped with them mingling with passengers at the start of the cruise. The trap was sprung. By the time the ghost ship was finally cleared by Spain to dock at the Tenerife Islands on May 10th, the damage was done. 10 confirmed cases. 3 fatalities, the Dutch man, his wife, and that German woman. Plus 4 extremely sick patients needing intensive medical evacuations to hospitals across South Africa, the Netherlands, and Switzerland. They also had 2 Indian crew members placed in quarantine who thankfully never showed symptoms. Whenever a lethal virus crosses borders and traps people on a ship, we all immediately think the same thing, right? Are we looking at the start of the next global pandemic? And honestly, with a 50% mortality rate, it is a terrifying thought. But let's take a breath and look at the actual science, which tells a much more reassuring story. First off, hantavirus is not airborne like COVID or the flu. It is not going to sweep through your local grocery store. Because it demands such intense, prolonged physical contact, and because its transmission window is literally locked to a single day, its ability to spread like wildfire is pretty much zero. The World Health Organization officially ranks the global risk as low. In fact, there's never even been a recorded human-to-human case in Europe or Asia. You don't need a massive global lockdown for this. If someone gets sick and just isolates for a couple of days, the chain is instantly broken. Section 4. Actionable prevention. While you shouldn't lose sleep over a global hantavirus pandemic, your personal risk is still very real, especially if you live near heavy rodent populations or during those massive El Niño weather events. The mortality rate is just too high to ignore. So what can you actually do to protect yourself? It's all about breaking the chain of contact. Seal up any gaps in your house so mice can't get in. If you're going into a dusty, enclosed space that's been locked up like an attic, a shed, or a warehouse, throw on an N95 mask and some gloves, especially if you spot mouse droppings. Keep your food sealed up tight and take care of your garbage so you aren't basically rolling out the red carpet for virus carriers. At the end of the day, hantavirus is a silent threat. It really only makes global headlines when an unbelievable tragedy like the 2026 ghost ship happens. But it has been quietly infecting people for decades. Since we don't have a vaccine and we don't have a cure, our absolute best weapon against this thing is just plain awareness. You now know exactly how it operates, how it spreads, and how to stop it. Which leaves us with one final thing to think about. As our climate rapidly changes and extreme weather events like El Niño become way more common, are we truly prepared for the microscopic threats those shifting ecosystems are going to unleash?